afternoon. We are all myself here, and we want to welcome all of you here today. We thank you for coming. I'm Louise Russell. I'm chairperson of the Council on Aging. Before we get started, I want to introduce the rest of the members, and I think most of you know who they are. We have our vice chair, Shashi Menon, Norma Giamantaro, Zoya, and Barbara DePaulo, and Virginia will be coming later, I hope, and we hope she can make it today. Traffic isn't always what we hope it would be on days like this, too. Also, the staff members that are here today, we have Cynthia Wilkins, who's the transportation coordinator. We have Donna Missy, the GC Office Support Coordinator. I can't keep all these names straight. I need to check. Yes, and then Walter Rice, who is our outreach coordinator. So, and we thank you all. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kristen and Sharon, and they will take it from here. And I think you'll have a very interesting afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kristen Lass. I'm the Assistant Town Manager with the Town of Shrewsbury, and I'm here to assist the Council on Aging Board and the staff on their next strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan from 2019 to 2024. So Cynthia, if you wouldn't mind advancing the slide. So just what I wanted to go through is our agenda for today. We're going to be here probably for about an hour. If you have questions after, we're here for the duration. We have another session here tonight at 6. It would be the exact same session. So if you have friends or neighbors or family members who want to attend tonight, we know it might be a little chilly, but there's no snow in the forecast, so it's okay to come out. So we're going to be going over who's actually in the room today, what is a strategic plan, because many of you might not know what a strategic plan is, what is the purpose of having a strategic plan, what are the results of a survey that was circulated to seniors and those about to be seniors within the community. We think that that's really important, especially for those of you who filled out the survey, to know what those results were and how they're going to be incorporated into the plan. And then how is this strategic plan going to affect me, whether you're a staff person, a senior, or a community member? What are the goals and objectives that the board and the staff have come up to date? We want to present those to you today and get some feedback. And what are the next steps in the process? So next slide, Cynthia. So feel free to answer or not answer these questions, whatever your preference is, based upon just raising your hand. So how many of you in the room are a Shrewsbury resident? Awesome. How many of you are a senior, which is 60 or over? If you don't want to show your age, you don't have to raise your hand. Great, so majority are seniors. How many of you might be a senior in the next 5 years, so 55 to 60? Okay, great. How many of you are a caregiver for a senior? Okay, few. And how many of you are town staff or another organization? Great, so thank you for our community partners coming today. Next slide, Cynthia. So I just wanted to go over what the definition of a strategic plan is and what planning is. The process of creating or rewriting an organization's mission, identifying and evaluating the long-term goals and strategies to reach those goals, and determining the required resources and steps necessary to accomplish those goals. So very high-level things, not day-to-day tasks, not what we do on a day-to-day basis, but very high-level thinking. And then that turns into a strategic plan. So what is that? That's a plan that defines the who, the what, the when, the where, the how, and how much for achieving strategic goals. So measurable things. And the long-term, company-wide, so we'll just say organization-wide, and established by top management. Cynthia, next slide. So Sharon, I'll turn it over to you to kind of give us a history of what strategic planning has been done for the COA in the past and where we're going to be going through moving forward.
Thank you, Kristen, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see everyone here. I think I recognize everybody, but if you don't know me, I'm Sharon Yeager. I'm the director here at the Senior Center. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of history. Hopefully I won't get too long-winded about it, because like Kristen said, we only want to keep you here an hour. But basically, to answer some of the questions you might be thinking, like, have we done this before? Is this something we've done in the past? Why are we making a big deal of it now? And the answer is yes, we have done it before. As you can see on the slide, we did one when the department first expanded, hired a full-time director, and started growing in our staffing and our programming. And that would have been back in 1995. So we created a 5-year strategic plan at that time from 1996 to 2001. And it was really the goals and objectives that were outlined in that strategic plan that helped make this building a reality, because it became very clear in doing that very first strategic plan that there was no way we were going to be able to accomplish what we hoped to at our current programming space, which was the current Parker Road preschool, and where we used to share space with Shrewsbury Media Connection and the special ed department in Shrewsbury Family Services. So then once we moved into this building, we were anxious to get going again. We started the very preliminary movement of getting a new strategic plan in place from 2001 to 2006. And unfortunately, we just kind of got caught up in all the things that we were doing here with trying to expand programs and services. We added our volunteer coordinator position at that time, and some additional staffing, and that strategic plan really didn't go very far. We tried to do a survey in 2002, got a great response to it, but then unfortunately weren't able to tabulate the data the way we wanted to be able to do what we called a query so we could get some meaningful answers out of it. So we gave another attempt in 2008 to 2013, tried a different approach there. We didn't do a survey at that time, but we did 6 different focus groups that addressed a few of the big things that we continue to focus on: transportation, outreach, volunteerism, activities, programs, and services that we provide. And came up with a good plan then. But then, of course, as you can tell from those dates, that covered when we had our big financial crisis. So we were looking at staff cuts. The town was really having to rein everything in. And basically, we were just trying to tread water during that time. So we weren't really able to take it any further with trying to implement what we had come up with during that strategic plan. We never got it out to the public. We never got to do a survey to get feedback on that. But all that has changed with what we're doing now. So in 2015 and 2016, we started doing a self-assessment process. And we did that using a template through NISC, the National Institute of Senior Centers. And they're an accrediting body that happens nationally. They have accredited senior centers across all of the United States, a limited number here in Massachusetts. We have some in Connecticut and other spots in New England, but we have 9 accredited senior centers in Massachusetts. And initially we were talking about the benefits and pros and cons of accreditation, and we figured, well, regardless of whether or not we go for accreditation, let's go for the self-assessment process, which would be necessary to go for accreditation, and use that model to see where we're at. So we did that during 2015 and 2016, and one of the things that really came out of that was that we desperately need to have a strategic plan. So regardless of going through the self-assessment process, if we did want to move forward with accreditation, we would have to have a specific strategic plan in place to show the accreditation folks nationally. So that brings us to where we are now. We've been working, the board has been working along with the staff. We also had a consultant working with us, and of course Kristen, who has been very instrumental in helping us along with this process. Kristen will probably just give you a quick overview of some other town departments that are also working at strategic planning at this time. And there's a lot of good overlapping that this just fits in very nicely. And part of the things that we looked at while we started going through this process was our mission statement. So we did update our mission statement. Our new statement is there, as well as the handouts that you have, which have some of snippets from this PowerPoint presentation. So this was something the board worked very hard on, and really just tried to beef up the language to really capture what we try to do every day here at the Senior Center. So we'll be anxious to get your feedback on what we've been doing and what you'll see here to see if that all fits with our mission. You've probably seen that on the cover of our newsletter. We have it right on our masthead, and we've been trying to incorporate it on all the various materials that we put out. So to jump into who did we survey, we were able to conduct a scientific survey this summer, well, roughly 6 months ago. It was sent out back in June, and the respondents came in back during the course of July and August. And we did a scientific sample, which is different than just doing a survey out to everybody. That was probably one of the biggest questions I got from people is, how come I didn't get a survey? Or I saw in the newsletter you were doing a survey, but I didn't get one, how come? And that was because we wanted to make sure it was scientific. We wanted to get a representative sample of the community to make sure we were hearing from equal parts of the community, regardless of their gender, their age. And this time, we also wanted to include the boomers, the folks that are 50 to 59, that if we're doing a strategic plan, looking at 5, 10 years down the road, we wanted to hear what these folks were looking at. And we know from our outreach efforts that this is a lot of the caregivers, what we call that sandwich generation, some of the people that are still caring for kids, as well as aging parents or in-laws. So we wanted to hear what these folks were dealing with and how we could be a resource for them here in Shrewsbury. So we decided we were going to do a sample size of 1,000. So when you look at this chart, and again, it's on your handouts too, if you're having trouble seeing this, when you add up all the residents between the ages of 50 to 59, 60 to 69, and so on, you have over 14,000 residents here in town that we were looking to survey. So of that 1,000, what we did to get a scientific sample is we took the percentage that each of those decades made up of that total, and then pulled a sample from our master list of folks in that age category of 50 all the way up to 100 plus. And our return samples were very good. So we were looking for about a 40% return to match that adjusted sample for like 50 to 59. We got a 36% return. We actually got less in the 60 to 69 category, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But we were hoping to see about 28% come back in that category. We only got less than half of that. We got 12.5% back in that grouping. And then for the 70 to 79, we were only looking for about an 18% return, and we actually got a 31% return in that category, which makes sense. I mean, I think most of you have seen in our statistics, historically, that's really the age group we see the most of, taking advantage of the senior center activities, programs, and services, is in that 70 to 79 category. Then 80 to 89, we were pretty much right on target. We were looking for a 10% return there, got 13%. And again, with the 90 and over, we were just looking for a 4% return, and we got a little bit more than that, 4.3. So overall, we got a very good return. It is a representative sample size. We got enough that it's considered valid. And we did also include 3.2% of folks didn't specify their age. So they're in the totals later in the findings, but it doesn't, that we couldn't group them here. So I'd like to hope that maybe they're in the 60 to 69 category, but we don't know. So some of the survey data highlights, with the majority of the respondents, the biggest thing that we saw was that people checked off, just very briefly, how many, even if you didn't receive the survey, have seen a draft of the survey that went out? I know some of the receptionists in the office helped us photocopy things. Are you actually familiar with the layout of the survey and the questions we asked? No. Okay, so that's something we may want to provide to you later on. One of the things we asked in a portion of the survey was a whole section of questions about program services and activities that we offer through the department to see if people were aware of them. The number one question that we asked at the beginning was, are you aware of the Senior Edition newsletter? The majority of the respondents checked yes, they were. For all the other questions, the majority of the folks checked no, they weren't aware of it, even though most of those things are found in the newsletter. So we were like, well, what's the disconnect here? They're aware of the newsletter, but are they not reading it? Are they just saying, oh, that doesn't pertain to me? We're not sure. But so that was a big thing that we saw as a highlight, was that people were not aware of the majority of the things that we do. We also asked people what they were interested in as far as fitness programs, classes that we could offer, arts and crafts, and different social programs that we know are popular here or at other senior centers. And again, you have a sample of this on your handout as far as the top 3 things that people chose in each of those categories. One of the things we found out after the fact, when we were getting the data back, is we realized we neglected to ask about games. That's something that obviously a lot of people enjoy. It's a popular social activity, something that we know keeps your brain sharp. And obviously that's something we offer a lot of here, whether it's Scrabble, Pitch, Whist, Bingo. And we did not ask about that category. So unfortunately, that's not included here. And again, we realized that after the fact, but we think we still have a lot of good data here. As far as when we asked people why they weren't coming to the senior center, the number one response was that they were still working. And when you look at the sizes of who we were asking, that makes sense. But when we said, well, other than working, you'll see what the top responses were. And other than not needing services at this time, the number one reason the person doesn't identify as a senior. So does that mean we have, again, a marketing challenge? Are people in denial about how old they are? It brings up some interesting questions. I mean, you probably, if you've tuned into the board meetings, you've heard me say, if I had to go to a place called the Middle Age Center, I probably wouldn't be too interested in going. So again, do we have a bit of an identity crisis? We're not sure. One of the big things we all know that we do, because a lot of you here I know are volunteers, volunteering. 41% of our respondents are volunteers. A lot of them, like most of you, volunteer at multiple places. The two top places people said they volunteered was a nonprofit organization or their place of worship. And we've already asked about caregivers. 22%, which again, very consistent with state averages, report that they're a caregiver, regardless of their age. So this was under 60, as well as 60 and older. Most of them are caring for another Shrewsbury resident, but that they do not live with them. So again, that poses some challenges that we might want to look closer at and see how we can support those folks. So the big takeaways that we got from the survey is that there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration for the activities. These are things we might be able to partner around with Parks and Recreation. Gary Brindle's here from Parks. The library, possible fitness facilities. As you saw in the handout, one of the things that people responded that they really want to see are fitness machines. Obviously, that would be very hard to implement here at the senior center. How can we make that available to folks as a town service that we offer in an affordable way? For care partners, what we were seeing for that percentage fits in nicely with our movements towards becoming a dementia-friendly community, but how else can we support those care partners, particularly the ones that, again, are still working or have other challenges? Obviously, we have a big marketing outreach dilemma that we need to face. How do we get the word out there to make people aware of what we have available? And one of the things, if we do go for accreditation, we need to have an actual marketing plan. So what does that look like? How do we want to put that together? And then as far as volunteering, we know that that's something that's very important to people. How do we continue to be a good resource in town for volunteering, as well as placing people, and again, collaborating, where places of worship are a big place where people are volunteering, how we might be able to further collaborate with places of worship. The small home repair program that Walter oversees through outreach, that grew out of an interfaith community project that was going on. There's a lot of other opportunities that we could seek as well. So as far as how the strategic plan is going to affect me, I think I'll turn that back over to Kristen to cover that part of it. And again, she might talk about some of the other strategic planning efforts that are going on in town as well.
Thank you, Sharon, and thanks for reminding me to talk about some of the other strategic planning efforts. I'm sorry that some of you, I'm going to have to move around because there's cards and cameras and whatnot. So the Shrewsbury Senior Center or Council on Aging isn't the only organization through the Shrewsbury municipal government that has a strategic plan. The library and the library trustees have a very robust strategic plan that they just finished, and they have a very robust action plan that they use to develop their staff, their budgets, their programming, their national asks for grants and services. The town of Shrewsbury belongs to the Regional Health Alliance with the city of Worcester and 6 other communities. So we partner with all of those communities to move forward with a strategic planning effort in the health realm. And then our various boards and committees do this on a smaller level. But if you've worked for a corporate organization or another municipal organization, you may have been a part of developing a strategic plan, or you may have been a part of it and not even known it, just based upon interviews or verbal conversations or whatnot. So this strategic plan is going to affect everyone in a positive way, we hope. And we're going to say that seniors, soon-to-be seniors and visitors will understand the input provided in the strategic planning process and will understand the direction for the COA organization through this plan. Again, I'm stressing that this is a very high-level plan, and we're going to get into some of the details in a few minutes, but again, this is not the day-to-day things that go on. This is the broader picture of where we want to see the organization. The director and the COA staff will have a clear direction on the priorities to focus on and what to budget for in the coming years. And our community partners will understand where there is need for support and to help with development of programs and resources. All right, next slide, Cynthia. So the COA board and staff, with the help from another consultant, myself and the director, have come up with 3 goals for the strategic plan. And I believe those goals are on your sheets. So goal number 1 is to expand the variety of programs, activities, and services that address the needs and interests of Shrewsbury seniors and care partners. And I want to stress that these goals have not been made in a vacuum. We've used the information received in the surveys. We've received the information that the board members get from talking with seniors and soon-to-be seniors and staff people. We use the information that our staff gets from interacting with people who come to the senior center. And then this is just another part of the process that we'll document, that we're educating you all today about what the strategic plan is and collecting further data to finalize the report. So some of the objectives are to ensure that transportation needs are addressed by affordable and convenient resources. We have van transportation, we partner with taxi cab services and the WRTA bus. Objective number 2 is to improve connections with targeted populations, whether they be seniors, minorities, non-English speakers, there's a whole bunch of that. To ensure transparency with current and potential program and service collaborators. That's why I asked today of who is here from another organization that potentially we could collaborate with. And then the final objective under goal number 1 is to add and or expand programs, services, and activities that are in demand. So some of you may be attending some activities in the senior center and say, well, I wish I could come to a yoga class 3 days a week and not just 1 day a week. If we don't have the room here, how can we help you partner to find a yoga class 2 other days of the week? Or if you're trying to find transportation or someone to help with cooking and things like that, how do we partner on that level? Next slide, thank you. So goal number 2 is to increase community support for the Council on Aging and other resources for seniors. And I know the board and the staff really worked very hard on this goal. It's very important to them. Objective number 1 is to create awareness of programs and services of the Council on Aging, and Sharon alluded to this in our survey, that we do need to develop better marketing and understanding. We have a diversion. Some people like to receive print material and everything in hard copy and write notes, but how do we get to that group who is more in the digital age and has electronic devices and things like that, that they like to receive information that way? How do we expand on the use of the building and the transportation services? So the 4 walls of the building are the 4 walls of the building. It's unlikely that we'll have any major expansions in the near future. But again, how can we expand services of the Council on Aging to areas outside of that? Using the recreation example, Gary is here for that. How do we get seniors involved in other town recreation programs? The Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services is here. How do we engage seniors in those types of options? How do we increase the departmental funding in relation to the senior population? This is a big one. So we do receive a certain amount of funding from the state for every senior that is a resident within the town of Shrewsbury. We also allocate a certain number of the general fund budget to the senior center, but are there potential fundraisers that we could be doing, or grants that we could be occurring, or how could we market ourselves more to get more funding to do those things that are listed in the strategic plan? And the last objective of goal number 2 is to increase collaboration with for-profit and local businesses. So how do we get the word out that seniors are important in Shrewsbury, that they have a great deal of knowledge, experience, a lot of you have lived here for a really long time, and how do we leverage that in a fashion? And then goal number 3 is provide a welcoming experience for participants and visitors. So hopefully when you walk into your home or your kid's home or somewhere else, you feel welcome. You want to sit down, you want to read a book, you want to go in the cabinets and get something to eat. We want this building or the services that we provide that may be outside of the building to feel welcoming towards you. But something that may feel welcoming to Cliff might not feel welcoming to Bob. So we want to understand, what does welcoming for all mean, kind of inclusive? We have a very diverse community right now, which is something really to celebrate. So we're struggling of how we can be welcoming to all those not only seniors, but those who accompany seniors. So we'd like to determine the features of the physical building that can enhance user experience, whether that be enhanced signage or people standing at the front welcoming you as you come in the building. Utilize centralized themes to welcome new participants. So we're coming upon our 20th anniversary of being in this building. Can we do something to leverage that? Many of you attend the Spirit of Shrewsbury. Can we plan events on that? We were talking about partnering with the health department on, February is Heart Health Month. How can we go through those monthly features and market ourselves that way? And then utilize best practices to provide a welcoming experience. So we're not the only senior center in Massachusetts or the country. What are other communities or other organizations doing to provide a welcoming experience? We don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. So next slide. So just to give you a time frame of where we are in the process, we're coming towards the end of the process, which is very exciting. It's been a long 2 years of work, but we've done a lot of important work. After this meeting this afternoon and this evening, the COA board is going to hold two meetings in February to discuss the results of the feedback we received today, as well as the draft documents. The COA and COA board will be attending the Finance Committee hearings on the fiscal year 2020 budget and outlining some of our proposed draft strategic objectives to them in terms of financing. And then it's the hope that the COA board will plan to adopt this strategic plan at their March meeting and will begin implementation from March 2019 to 2024 and adjusting as we go along. Just one last slide. So we want to make sure that you all have a chance to talk today. There are sheets on your table if you prefer to write your comments down and you don't feel comfortable talking. Again, I want to remind you that we're not going to be talking about the height of the grab bars in the restrooms today or the setup of this room. We want to say, what are the large picture things? Some of those survey results, did something resonate with you that you think that's really important? So we have about 20 minutes that we'd love to take some questions or input or anything like that. I know Mark is taping, so your mic, Mark, for people is available. If you're able to come up and want to use this mic, please feel free to do so. Just want to ask Sharon if she has anything else she wants to wrap up with before we open it up to the public.
Not that I can think of, but just for the folks that might be viewing this after the fact, Kristen and my email and our email and our phone number are both listed there. So for anyone that may be watching this later, again, we're available for you to hear your input, any questions that you had or ideas. And the sheet that we provided to you, that's just our general feedback sheet. So if you have an experience that you want to share, either positive or negative, feel free to jot it down, or concerns that you might have. And again, it's completely anonymous. We have a box right there that you can drop your comments in afterwards. But overall, again, thank you so much for participating today.
So Missy, you had something?
So the question I have is, my name is Missy Hallebeck, I'm from Shrewsbury. The question I have is, I have a hearing disability, and it's one I've had since I was a child, so I've dealt with it, but it's the same type of hearing loss that many people get when they're older. And that starts when you're about 50. There's been so many studies done about the impact of hearing loss on memory issues, depression, anxiety, just a huge range. This building is horrible for sound. I mean, just looking at this room alone with the high ceilings and the echoing, that we really need maybe to also include working with the Council on Disabilities, also to be able to provide more hearing services for people as well. The other thing is, I'm at that range there where I'll be using the facility in a few years, but I also have a parent in California who has diagnosed recently with Alzheimer's. So, I'm there. And then also being able to provide people like me, what the heck, I'm hearing from people on Facebook, Northborough has better services, providing information for people like me. So when we want to reach out, we really need to go deep into the age brackets and possibly work with the schools as well. So just a thought of, their whole marketing plan.
Thank you. Anybody else want to provide some thoughts or feedback or comments? Is anyone utterly confused? It's okay to admit that.
Maybe it should be mentioned that we are working on getting a new sound system.
So that is one of the things, we are working on getting a new sound system. We are also looking at putting in the capital budget for the town meeting a feasibility study to study the town hall, the senior center, and the police station for those types of things such as building design, facades, and the like. So we will definitely take into effect visual impaired and hearing loss and those types of things. Thank you. Yes?
Could you repeat the question when someone else asks a question to you, so all of us can hear?
Sure, I will certainly repeat it. If you're not able to get to the microphone, I'll definitely repeat the question. Thank you for that comment. Was there someone here? Yes.
A comment. So, hi, my name is Kelly Landini, and I'm from the residents of Orchard Grove. I'm the Director of Business Development, and I just wanted to respond to Missy's comment that we are currently trying to work, or we are working with this senior center to help make Shrewsbury dementia friendly, and we will be doing a training program starting with all the first responders and then working through the different business segments in the community to make sure that banks and restaurants and supermarkets are all trained on how to approach not only people that may have dementia, but just the senior population in general, or anybody that may have some type of disability. And so to that point, yes, we are an assisted living and independent and memory care community. However, we're also a resource. So if anyone ever has questions on, how can I help my parents stay at home? Where would be a good place to take them to get them to be more social and involved in the community outside of the senior center? We're here to be a resource to the whole community, whether that is the person that's actually struggling at home or whether that's a family member. So I welcome anyone that needs any type of assistance or looking for a resource to reach out to us, because we're more than happy to help. And our goal really is to help people stay at home as long as they can, but when that time comes, we're here for them.
Thank you. That's a great example of partnership, so we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
See if this reaches.
I'm Ben. My name is Ben Tartaglia. I'm a town meeting member of 266. I've been involved with quite a few things in town. I have two questions. One is,
If you could talk a little louder, that would be
okay,
great. Thank
is
you.
that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
One of the things in town that I see becoming critical in the next 5 to 10 years is housing. There's two parts of it. First of all, how is the Council on Aging involved with housing, if any?
So
That's
go ahead.
well, anyway, I see a problem in town. I know our housing authority now has 60 people waiting for housing authority apartments. And I'd like to see something done, either zoning wise or with permit requirements, where it's easier for a couple that has, a large enough house to put it into an apartment situation where they can get revenue and not have to move out of the house and go into the home. So there's plenty of demand for small apartments through UMass, because I rented to UMass for 20 years, and there's a big demand there. Also, in-law apartments. Right now, if you make your home into an in-law apartment, have your family move in, and you sell that house, and the people that buy that house have to reapply to keep it as an in-law apartment. And that may become a problem, procedural thing. They said the housing authority needs additional apartments, and the town right now doesn't have any land putting any more in. So we'd have to look at zoning and permit requirements, things like number of parking spaces. That's always critical in a town. If you're going to have somebody else living there, how many parking spaces you're going to have. So I think housing, right now it isn't a major problem, but if you take the people between 50 and 69, you're talking about almost 10,000 people that are going to have to make some decisions about where they live as their income, cuts back. There's no such thing as fixed income. It's decreasing spendable income. That's two different questions. And I'm just questioning, what is the benefit of accreditation? What do we get for it, and what do we have to agree to in order to be accredited?
Yeah, we'll come this way.
I can take a few of those answers, and then I'll probably defer to Kristen on the zoning stuff. So one of the things that you've touched on is very a phenomenon that's being seen everywhere. And actually, MCOA, the Massachusetts Council on Aging, has a task force that's trying to address the housing issue. Walter, that's a very common question that Walter's brought to as an outreach coordinator of people looking for housing. And the Shrewsbury Housing Authority is separate from the town. They have state and federal units available, but they don't get involved in any, even though it says the Shrewsbury Housing Authority, it really has nothing to do with the municipality at all. On the MCOA level, the task force is trying to work at developing some type of a network to provide like senior-friendly housing for folks that are looking for it. Most people, if any of you have been landlords or know that most landlords would love to rent to a senior person. That's like an ideal tenant for them. And particularly if they're willing to provide things like snow removal and things like that somebody is looking to downsize and hopefully get away from. So there's a name that they have for it in Worcester, but in Worcester particularly, there's many apartments, but not people that are renting them, so they have a lot of apartments sitting there empty. And one of the things that MCOA is hoping to do is create some type of directory or for folks that are looking to connect with seniors who are looking to rent, that there could be some kind of landlord-tenant type of directory or something that COAs could help register somebody into or help facilitate them being part of that network so that, senior centers can help us with that senior, connected to the senior center, can live independently. And so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. As far as the accreditation part, that's something that a lot of folks did ask back when we first started the process, and we have asked, the two closest senior centers to us that are accredited are Framingham and Needham. And that was one of the questions that we asked them when we visited their senior centers back in 2015 to say, what's the benefit of doing this? There is a cost associated to it. It has to do with your population. The NCOA organization charges a rate based on how many seniors you have in your community. We try to make it equitable so smaller communities aren't paying as much as a big city would be. And most of it has to do with what we're talking about as far as marketing and recognition, things that are hard to put a price on. A lot of times it does open you up to some funding sources that you might not otherwise have, particularly with private organizations or nationwide ones. There's some out there that only want to work with nationally accredited senior centers because they know that they've gone through that process and that they're tied into that national network. Part of the accreditation process has to show that you've provided a wide range of activity, services, and programs. That again, those are things that funders might be looking for to see that, again, the municipality has taken those extra steps to try to ensure equitably, across their senior center spectrum of what types of things are offered to the community. So it's more intangible, but at the same time, there's been some monetary benefits for those that have done it. I'll turn it over to Kristen for the other parts.
Thank you. I'll touch briefly upon the housing, but just want to remind you that this plan is really about, we were talking about partnerships, so how do we partner? And this would be an effect of where the Council on Aging would partner with the Housing Authority and would also partner with the Planning and Economic Development Department. So I can tell you that the Planning and Economic Development Department is currently going through updating their housing production plan. So that talks about how do we increase or how do we maintain the housing units within the town of Shrewsbury that makes it affordable for all. what types of units do we want to see in the town of Shrewsbury? Do we want to see accessory dwelling units? And the planning board has held 2 public hearings, December and January, and they'll be reviewing the plan in more detail next Thursday, February 7th, I believe is the date, to talk about housing. And I oversee both the Planning and Economic Development Department and the Council on Aging, so we'll certainly have that conversation coming out. But we do know the importance of having housing, and not only just housing, but affordable housing for seniors. We see these over 55 developments going up, and some of the units are selling for $650,000, and we know you're not selling your single-family houses for that. So how do we provide a safe place for you to live and thrive in Shrewsbury? So we're definitely looking into that. Thank you. Is there anybody who hasn't spoken that wants to talk? Yes.
I have a question about budget. Because it would seem to me to implement almost any of these things as suggested, it's going to cost more money. Now, how is the budget provided for this senior center? It's through the town? So does the rubber hit the road at these budget committee hearings? And what sort of budget are we looking for, or increase, or what? Even for something like talking about the sound or other things.
Sure. So I'll give a brief overview and I'll have Sharon input if necessary. So the question was, this is all about budget. All of these things you're talking about cost more money, right? So there's some benefits of having a strategic plan. One, you can go out for grant opportunities. We know grant money isn't free. There's still work on the back end that you have to do administratively and comply with certain regulations and whatnot. But we would be afforded certain grants, perhaps, for more money. The other thing is having a strategic plan allows you to present to Finance Committee, Town Manager, Town Meeting even, that we have done a thoughtful 2-year process on what our needs are. And could you please think about relaying those needs and allocating those funds in the budget? There's also other funds that Sharon can speak to, that the COA does not just receive town funds for the services. We receive Mass DOT funds and other federal funds that service this. So having a strategic plan helps us prioritize what our needs are, helps us map out where our budget needs are, and then present them in a really concise and clear way that's very manageable for others to understand. Did that help answer your question? Someone else here too? Yes.
Any strategic plan really is dependent on the people who are going to be supporting it. I'd like to know what's the support from the town, and with a decreased number of staff now that we have here, what kind of a support are we going to get from the Council on Aging as well? Now, we went through this back when this place was built. The town didn't really support it that strongly. Of course, the politicians were all here when it was built, big smiles on their face. But I want to know, really, what's your take on the support that we're going to get from the town to implement this? And what kind of support are we going to get from the staff? Right now, volunteers are running this place. And you've got to understand that. It's all volunteers that are running all these activities and all. It's not the staff. And so, what kind of support are we going to get from those two entities?
So did everyone hear the question, or do you need me to repeat it?
No, I heard.
So I can tell you that from the assistant town manager and the town manager, we certainly support this plan. I cannot speak for the Board of Selectmen, but we report back to them, and I have not heard any negative feedback. So that's where I stand on that. I'll let Sharon speak to her staff and her board, but I can tell you that we are hiring for 2 new positions here at the COA. We've had some staff changeover, and we're actually increasing from a half-time position to a full-time position. So we have put that in the budget, and the town meeting did support that as well.
Thank you. Well, one of the things that you've probably seen, again, talking about themes, is that we've tried to group our actions together with particular programs. We have always had a transportation coordinator to head up all of our transportation efforts. We have our outreach coordinator to head up all of our outreach efforts. And clearly, as you've seen, those are some of the things that we want to expand on. Whether or not that's going to relay into further additional staffing down the road in the course of the 5 years, that's something that the board will be continuing to monitor and work on, along with Kristen and the town manager, finance committee, and the board of selectmen, to make sure that the staff has the appropriate supplies, personnel, and other monetary things to make those things happen. One of the things, you brought up the volunteers, and obviously we wouldn't be able to do what we do without of our volunteers. And I think we will plan on continuing to have that be the case in our next 5-year strategic plan, where we have focused so heavily on volunteers. We want that to continue to grow, but just like with grants, as Kristen said, there's a lot of back-end things that needs to go into that too. So getting the approval to make our volunteer coordinator be a full-time position in part admin, I think will be a huge step towards making that a positive thing to help accommodate that growth. And I just think this will be a big part of helping to make that staffing piece more solid as we go forward. And when we roll out the action plan steps, I think that'll help you see a lot of what you're asking too, as far as specific staffing questions of who's going to be making these things happen. As Kristen said, the action plan that the library has put out is very thorough and spells all of that out. And we're hoping to really mirror that in our own plan. So you can look from department to department, and it will hopefully be very similar as to who you can expect to be doing what and where all those things are going to fall. So we have a great example to follow as far as the library's plan. Sure. Why don't you go ahead and throw a report? We'll go with you first.
Okay. You should be able to, I think you can probably pick me up from here. Can you hear me from here?
Yes.
I'm Christine Morey. I'm the Executive Director of Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services. And I just wanted to let you all know that although we do have a heavy focus on youth, we're also in the middle of a new strategic plan. And one of our imperatives is to make sure, thank you so much, that we reach every population in town. So whether that looks like things like bereavement, grief and loss groups, or support for grandparents raising grandchildren, or whatever it may be. We work very closely with the Council on Aging. We meet with Walter weekly. We work very closely with our town departments. And so as we move ahead with our plan for the next 3 years, we really would love to hear from you on what your emotional, mental health, and wellness needs are so that we can directly respond to whatever those needs may be. So please feel free to give us a call, or we are literally right here down the street at 222 Maple Ave. Stop by, see our facility, and just know that we're there to support everybody in our community. So I think we're frequently overlooked, but we're here for you. So whatever it is that we can provide, please let us know. Thank you.
That's okay. I'd just like to know that the patio on the other side of the building is very underutilized. And I know we've spoken about trying to make it handicap accessible going down the step, but I don't hear very much about trying to make it more usable. I've thought about like in a sunny day or a warm day, but it's missing out. If there was some kind of covering or roof or something to give you some protection from the sun or whatever, I think that might make it more accessible. People might want to go out there. Also, there's nothing in this building that points that there's a patio out that way to be used. I'd like to see something done with the patio in the future.
Thank you for those comments. That will definitely fall under the feasibility study that we hope to undertake starting in July. So thank you for those comments. Yes.
I have just a very, very quick question. Can we take these surveys home and either mail or send them in? Can everybody hear me?
Can you take the surveys home and, these are the comments. Yes, you can take the comment sheets home and definitely mail them in or drop them back off. Yes. All right, so we have about 2 minutes. Any last burning questions or input or concerns that you want to bring up? Yes.
I think I'll probably have to set up a meeting to talk with you because I don't want to take a lot of time. But when we're talking about living units, there's a big difference between the market priced units. So you can put in a whole lot of them, and you refer to that, but they're going to cost you, $2,500 a month or something. Those aren't going to work. The housing authority really is affordable. It's 25% of your monthly income. So someone who's only on $1,200 a month income from Social Security pays $400 a month. It really is affordable. affordable at that point. But I think the town's gonna have to look at that. And a good point about them, if the town did invest in them somehow, is that they do count towards our 40B requirements, which is the number of, I don't know exactly, but it's a good thing. It counts towards our 40B, which is lower or affordable income, quote unquote. Anyway, I'd like to see the town look at that more closely.
All right, any last comments?
We talked about working with other departments and schools and stuff, and the transportation issue. I know I do a lot of programs in town, but I know that at night, if I have something that starts at 6:30 or 7, then I'm not going to get anyone from the senior population because of driving. And the van services are very limited, and I think it would be helpful to a lot of people to be able to kind of go out and to be able to do more in the community. And also, I know this has been a stickler over the years, but having this building accessible to people at night, to other ages, to Brownie troops, to Boy Scouts, to, whatever. And I know, again, it costs money, but the other thing is, so many people do not know what this building is. I had a gentleman from the farmer market. He thought this was like a nursing home. He thought people lived here. And he's been in town for, 15 years. And those are the perceptions. People have never been in here, so they don't know. But I have a feeling if they walked in, they go, wow, I think they expect more. So I think really being able to have more cross-pollination with all different age groups, it kind of starts with transportation and accessibility to everyone.
Thank you for that comment. I can definitely tell you that the board and the staff is looking at options and opportunities to increase hours of transportation and hours in the building. And another large thing that the board is looking at is intergenerational programming to make sure that the seniors are teaching the youth and the youth are teaching the seniors, and all of that is occurring. So thank you for bringing that up today.
And that helps with funding.
It certainly could help with funding, yes. So thank you all for coming out on this really cold day. We're lucky we're not in Chicago. We're in February. And if you have friends or family who want to come at 6 o'clock, we'll be doing a similar type of presentation to begin with, but the questions at the end will certainly be slightly different, I'm sure. So thank you, and be careful going home.